The crypto market has had a nice little bounce up, but are we out of the woods? Is all this pain over, or are we possibly in for more? Well, today we're joined by Paul from Definity as we look at a price analysis at the markets that affect crypto, as well as the majors in crypto, as well as many of your picks. Welcome to the Crypto Rain channel. I'm your host, Jay Rain. And if you like money in crypto and you're looking for a real investor's take on the crypto market, join the Rainmaker family by liking the video and subscribing with the all notifications bell enabled. Do note, I'm not a financial advisor. I'm a crypto investor myself. And I do own or plan to own most of what I talk about on this channel. Special shout out to our Patreon members. We have a private Discord that our Patreon members get access to. Now, make it rain on that like button. Strap in for the show. Let's welcome Paul from Definity. Paul, thank you so much for joining us.
Always a pleasure. And an extremely interesting week this week.
Yeah, I guess I've been pleasantly surprised, but wondering if we might still have more downside. It did come right up to the levels that you had talked about.
So. Yeah. Well, the prognosis is pretty good so far. So I can run through the charts when you're ready and tell you what I'm looking at. But this will work in phases. So like phase one, we see a reversal. Phase two, we get synchronization of all the markets doing what we expect. And then phase three, we get a continued bull market. So I can show you the levels that would trigger all those things whenever you like.
Absolutely. Sounds like fun. Do you mind if, before we get into the Bitcoin chart, that we go over that, if we take a look at anything that might be affecting Bitcoin and the other markets that you're keeping an eye on?
Yeah, very good idea. Absolutely. And I mean, one of the first things that I would look at, as you probably know, would be a chart of the US dollar and the general asset markets as well. Now, my charts got completely, or my list got completely reordered for some reason. So they're out of order. So it might take me a couple of seconds longer to find them than normal. But the main thing that we've talked about for some time is, are US yields going to drop? Are we going to get what's called risk on? So just to clarify what risk on is, because I've seen some people talking about risk on, meaning that it means that people want to take risk off the table. It's not that way. Risk on is like putting bets on the table. So think of it that way, risk on the table. Think of a casino, if that helps you, whatever image you want to make. Risk on is when investors feel like betting on what would be considered risky bets. Now, every bet in every market has some competition. Some of that competition is, do we put it into the US dollar, the Swiss franc, keep it in the bank account, buy gold? Do we buy risky bonds of companies, or risky bonds of companies that are outside of the US, perhaps in areas like South America, which will give you a big yield, but you might not see the return of your capital? So these are the questions that are being asked every day and every second in the financial markets. But one of the main drivers of fear is, will people go into the biggest, most powerful country in the world when they're scared? And will they want a premium for safety in buying the US dollar, or are they willing to invest outside of the US? And what we've seen is this very long-term upward trend in the US dollar, which has been driven by a change in interest rate expectations in the US. But it's also come at a time when commodity prices have been rising very aggressively. So this has been putting a lot of pressure. For those of you who've been watching the show week to week, you'll know that Jay and I have been talking about how the American investor's been squeezed by interest rates going up, the dollar going up. Companies are struggling to make overseas profits because of this. And also the man on the street and the woman on the street is struggling to pay bills because, of course, oil prices are so high, and that's caused the cost of living to go up. But what we're seeing is a move downwards in the dollar index. So this is known as the Dixie or the DXY, because that's its handle. So the dollar index has started to fall. Now, if you just quickly look at this chart and think, well, is this a massive reversal, or is it just a short-term retracement? And have we seen that before? Well, we've seen short-term retracements and the market's continued upwards. So we can't quite call the top yet, but we were thinking that we're in the final phase of this move anyway, because it started a long time ago, and the markets are expecting higher interest rates in America, but the commodity prices have already fallen a lot, which in our opinion, or my opinion, suggests that interest rates won't be rising quite so fast as people think towards the end of the year. And it could also mean that other countries might be raising their interest rates, which kind of take off the premium on holding the US dollar. So if people pull money out of the US dollar, what are they going to do with it? Well, they might start buying stocks. They might start to buy some bonds as well, buy bonds instead. Now, the chart of the US bond market is, again, one that is really important. And this, for me, is the most important chart that you're going to see, because it will drive everything going forward, perhaps into next year. Is this a topping formation? And it looks like it is. We've got this head and shoulders top that we've been tracking for some time. So if 10-year US rates, these are bond yields. So if bond yields can drop below 2.8%, it will complete this topping pattern, which looks to be in the very final stages. And then we should see a push into that risk on that I mentioned before, which will benefit stocks, it will benefit Bitcoin, and it will actually benefit commodity prices as well. So commodity prices that have fallen lower, some base metals that have had a massive drop, demand for those products I can't see going away, in the same way that I can't see demand for crypto assets completely disappearing now the genie is out of the bottle. So the market's going through a sorting period where, in this retracement, it's making the decision as to which companies are strong, which ideas are strong, which can survive a retracement, which was very similar to the beginning of the dot-com boom, when you had many companies going up, they got shaken out in the retracement. Then after this settling down period, we're going to see which ones survive. And it's a normal culling period for the market. That's how markets work.
Yeah, we're definitely seeing that. So, yeah, let's jump over to the Bitcoin market. We've had kind of a relief rally.
Yes, absolutely. So I think last week we were pretty clear about, can I, if you don't mind, I just want to show the Ethereum chart, just because, because it was leading the way. You remember that 1280 level we talked about last week?
Mhm.
Whilst below it, you know, you can't call a reversal. So some levels in technicals are binary. It's like below it, you've got to wait, above it, literally a pip over, the reversal's complete. And last week we were sitting below this 1280 level, which had failed once before, but I'm pretty sure we did say on the show that this level became even more important because it came back twice to touch it, and a breakthrough, which was a perfect breakthrough because it went all the way through it. It touched it again, actually, and then went all the way through it in one fell swoop. Didn't come back to it either. So that told us that this was going to be a base. So we got the basing pattern. Interestingly, if you look at how things traded, Bitcoin didn't move straight away. It's a bit of a lagger. It's still lagging slightly, but it's also based. Now, this was less clear as a base. Ethereum looked like it was basing properly, and this looks less like a basing pattern, but it still has based as well. Now, this has run into a trend line. Now, if I take that off the log, and you can see that this line sort of lines up, and well, on the log it's actually gone to it, and on the linear it's broken through it. Now I should really just move this line a little bit further up because it's cutting through price action. I don't like to do that. So that is the correct line for me. So this is the line where I think it will start to meet resistance, and there's also resistance up here at 2,500. Sorry, 25,000. So 25,000, sort of 400, that sort of area. These people who bought this breakout are very likely to want to take profits. Now, the question is, how much of a retracement are we going to see? And can it now use this jumping off point, this base, as a support zone? So if it comes back into it, it's fine. It might do that because nothing will go up in a straight line. But if it comes back into it, we want to see this holding as support. So this whole area here could be the start of something really major. It's obviously early days yet, but there's no reason to say why this market couldn't go much higher. There are some trend lines it needs to break. There is some resistance above that it needs to get through. So it's not plain sailing from here. But as they say, the journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step, and it's taken this first step. So let's see what happens next. But it's a reason to be short-term bullish. Long-term, we're bullish. We're expecting this correction at some point to be over, and for the major trend to kick in. And it's reasonable to expect there to be resistance at massive prior resistance points that we saw or support points that we saw on the way down. You know how we analyze markets. It's when something becomes support and the market's shown to hold there on support aggressively. When it comes back, it will act as resistance. So this area here, which is just coming up to 1720, that sort of area here, which is not far away, there's going to be a lot of pressure to take some profits on this move, whilst perhaps the dollar's still consolidating, whilst yields are still waiting to break that neckline. But if it does, then after a little pullback, I think we could see another really bullish phase. So, I think this is very encouraging stuff. Of course, it all ends if we break back below this 1280. But whilst above this 1280 level, I think the outlook is good.
Exciting that we're seeing some action towards the positive side. We'll see how this plays out. I would love for the lows to be in. I'm not convinced that they are, but this is looking a little bit bullish. Sometimes it then flips around, dashes our hopes one last time before it then goes up. Just having been in the market a number of times, sometimes it gives you this relief rally, gets your hopes up, and then it dashes them. And then for those that are patient, just stick around anyway. It's fine, because then even if it does go to lower lows one more time, then it's usually off to the races. It just shakes out some of those people that are just a little, I guess they're a little bit newer, or they just don't have proper expectations.
Yeah. I mean, there's if you remember, we were discussing some of the altcoins that seem to be leading the way. Now, I don't think we got around, and correct me if I'm wrong, but last week I wanted to have a look at Matic because it was making a bullish pattern, but I don't think we got around to it. But what's been strange about this, and we have said this a couple of times, that the altcoins seem to be leading the way up, which is really strange. It was like almost like that some of the altcoins were moving higher, and they were looking more bullish. Now, not everything, but literally some of the markets that you guys were picking last week were looking bullish, and there was some interesting sort of buying going on, and yet the majors hadn't moved yet. So there has been some indication, some sort of, they were very small indications, but they were there, that perhaps there was some buying coming in that needed to be built on. Of course, we couldn't just jump in on those small signals, but the fact that the majors have moved now and completed bases is a good sign. So it's right to be skeptical, of course, because sentiment is so very bearish. And again, as I say, if this is going to be a major base, like if before we can start talking about moving back to levels like 100,000 in Bitcoin, or toward targets like 100,000, not back to, but targets like 100,000 in Bitcoin, the market's got to do a lot more work yet. And if that's the case, the rally will just build in power, and there will be another opportunity to buy. So what's likely happened is most people have missed this move and will be thinking, okay, I'll wait for a pullback. Now, if it's going to be a good move, it will go quite a long way before it then pulls back. But there will be a pullback. There will always be a correction of some kind to join the trend. And then it's a question of what is the news at that time. If the news is bearish, it would be a good sign, because it would mean that the market is still trading very contrary to the sentiment. So this could rally all the way back to 45,000 and sentiment be really negative on it. And that's what I would like to see. But we shall see. And I think the dollar hinges a lot on it, in terms of if the dollar starts to weaken aggressively, then we might see people saying, as rightly so, that it's a hedge against potential inflation. There's so many different arguments about that. I've got to say, I've heard some people saying it is, some people saying it isn't, but in the end, you can't print it
against fiat destroying itself, right? And massive inflation is a signal of fiat destroying itself.
Exactly.
So now, my thought on why it even got this cheap was the failure of like Celsius and Voyager and some other things really kind of brought like a lot more fear in the market. Now that we're getting some kind of resolution on those, they're filing for bankruptcy and reorganization. At least that's somewhat clear. Maybe now the price is ready to correct back up to the levels it was at. And it did form this amazing buy opportunity that was so low. I mean, it was so cheap. I used this time, I mostly only stacked up on a Comey's OMI token while things were cheap. I wish I had a whole lot more liquidity. Would love another shot at buying at such low prices. Maybe I'm too optimistic towards that. That might not happen. Though if it does, yay. And if it doesn't, because that means everything's going up, that's not really a bad thing either.
Yeah, exactly. It's I mean, you're quite unusual in the sense that when you like something, you want it to go lower. Like most people who like things don't really want it to go much lower than the price they paid for it. But that's you know, everybody's different, and that goes for charting. You know, I'm sure there's some people who really don't like using charts, and some people and some funds who, you know, use it solely. So, and there's everything in between.
Totally. Well, let's jump over into some picks. These are viewer picks. So if you have a token or two that you want us to review next week, go ahead and put them in the comment section down below, not in the chat section, but the actual comments. Give us up to two that you want us to look at. And why don't we jump over to Meld, MELD.
Right, MELD. So Meld US dollar.
Yep.
Right. So what can we say about that? First off, it is a overall downward trend. Yep, we know that the industry's been under a cloud, so that's not surprising. So it's sort of alpha is it moves with the rest of the market, or the beta is it moves with the rest of the market. What can we say about what's going on here? Well, this price action is interesting because this looks to me like a basing formation. So I would say that if it can, again, it's, you know, like the level we talked about in Ethereum when it was 1280. Well, this is the equivalent of 1280. So this 3 cents, 3.036 is the key level. Now, it's not quite as big in the sense that it's only tested it a couple of times. But look at how it used that level of support on the way down. So I would say if it can break through there, it's a buy. Now, we're not far away from that. It could probably even do it today. So by the time you guys are watching this, you'll know whether it's gone through this resistance point and has become a reversal pattern, or whether it's failed and it's gone back down again. I'm going to stick my neck out because I'm in a bit more of a bullish mood than I've been for quite some time. So I'm going to say buy. But if by the time you see this, if it's not, you know, not successfully through this key resistance area, I would be putting your stop in very close, putting a stop in very close. Obviously, this is what I would do. You should do whatever you think. So don't take my view, take your own view. But this is what I'm seeing on the chart. So yeah, this looks interesting. It looks like a double bottom. We've got one there, two there, and it's accelerating towards key resistance, which I like. But as I said, I'd like it to be through there to indicate a base, and that is a big level. It's a really big level.
I do like Meld for the long term, and I think these prices are bargain basement prices. That doesn't mean it can't get a little bit cheaper. I don't know that it'll get much cheaper than what it's at. Like it might come down some and hit back into the under the 3 cent range. But still, I think in a year or two, people will look back at this project and think, wow, I can't believe it was so cheap like this.
I mean, what do they do? Should I know what they do? Because I must admit, I do forget when you tell me.
It's some innovative DeFi products on Cardano's blockchain. Eventually,
Right.
they'll be on like every blockchain, but their initial start is on Cardano's blockchain. We've interviewed the founders on this channel a couple times. Ken Blau, fantastic guy and a fantastic team. So they're doing things that you can do with DeFi because the loans are so much. I guess they're backed by your own collateral and everything. They're doing things like loans that pay themselves back. So you pay the principal you pay the interest every month. But because you're backing it with some collateral, and that collateral can earn staking rewards, the collateral is then paying the initial loan back. So, they're collateral backed loans, they're crypto as collateral backed loans, but some real innovative things that it's only possible in the crypto space.
So that would make a lot more sense if crypto was generally rising, because that's a lot of the collateral will be crypto, obviously. So their balance sheet would look much better if this goes up.
And DeFi has been out of the narrative for a long, long time as it comes back into the narrative, or as Cardano comes back into the narrative, because the Cardano community and Meld have really melded together. So it's like either Cardano takes off and does well, and Meld will do well from that, or DeFi does well and Meld will do well from that. So it's just well positioned.
Sure.
Great team. So let's look over Animal Concerts. I haven't looked at this one in a while, and I'm excited to look at the price.
What's the code?
ANML.
Right. Animal Concerts. That's very interesting as a name, I have to say. This is, let me just make sure that that's up to date. Yeah, it does look like it. So Animal Concerts, despite the interesting mental image that is producing, the actual chart itself, unfortunately, is still very much subdued. So in this environment where certain markets are bouncing, I would like to see this joining the trend. And instead of doing that, what we're seeing is it's still very much close to the absolute low, which is not a good sign. One positive is that it's gone sideways for a few weeks. Actually, probably no, not in fact a few weeks, about a week. That's okay. That's good for the first step of a reversal, as it needs to go sideways and then up. But we really are lacking that initial surge to indicate a base. So I would have to put in a tripwire point, and that tripwire point would be at 0.0011. So that's the level that I'm drawing here on the chart, where you can see it's the top wick of that major candle here. Because it's matched with this candle here, and it's also support as well. So if it can break through there, then I consider it a short-term reversal without knowing much about it and when I'll look at it again. But I wouldn't hold it until it's either broken that, and if it does break through it and that triggers position, I wouldn't hold it much below that either, just to be on the safe side. It's a bit of a shame, really, isn't it? Because it made a really nice reversal here, and that all just fell away. But yeah, I mean, there's still hope. At least the strength of the reversal, or strength of the downward trend, is easing. So that's one to watch rather than one to get involved with at this point.
Yeah, for me, it's a wait too, and I'll explain why. So it did this thing that often happens when tokens launch, and though I like the project, they have a lot of connections to all the music artists, like recording artists and others, in order to do like metaverse concerts. And so that's really what it's about, Animal Concerts. So we're all connected people in that space. So I like the narrative, though they launched and it did what things often do when they launch. They then, if they're a project that gets any momentum at all, it pumped like this. And then we're in this pre-sale vesting. My guess is that's what's going on, as well as the market kind of going down. And so they haven't been out all that long. And so what I'm looking for is probably more retracement, probably closer to what their initial, their IDO price was. And with the market the way it is, this might even go much cheaper than it's at. So for me, it's just a wait right now. It's still a young project and probably has a lot more token vesting to go that will put downward price pressure. That doesn't mean it can't take off, but what that means is there's going to be some price pressure as pre-sale investors or other investors get their tokens out, the incentive is for them to turn around and sell them and get some liquidity. Well, that puts downward price pressure on it. So unless the buy pressure then exceeds that downward price pressure that's going to be happening, the price will continue lower. And my expectation is, at least for a while, unless some big announcements start coming out, probably continue downward for even cheaper and cheaper prices. Cool.
Great. So what's the next one? I mean, the actual concept seems really interesting.
Yeah, and really cool team. Did an interview with them not too long ago. Let's take a look at Eternity Chain, or ERN is their token.
ERN, Eternity Chain. Right. What is this one up to? What it's up to is it's formed a base, which is really good. So what we've got here is the first sign of a major reversal. We've also got this volume going up, which also reminds me that, I think we were saying a few weeks back that you had to be here all the time, because sometimes, you get these downward trends and they are soul destroying. But it's when you sort of turn your back on the market and say, I'm not going to look at it anymore, that's usually when everything starts to turn around and you get these breakout impulsive moves. So this to me is interesting from a short-term base point of view, although that base is already triggered. So that triggered here at $1.50, actually just a little higher, $1.60. But what I'm seeing now is, if this is going to turn into something more interesting, it could potentially be a head and shoulders reversal pattern, and that might be what's forming here. So this is the left shoulder. This all becomes part of the head, and this rally, which fails and then comes back again, becomes the right shoulder, and we go back up for a break of $2, probably be about $2.25 if the timing is right, by the time it's gone down and back up again. So I'm bullish on this, but I think you need to sort of time it, perhaps look at a buy level around 160. So I'd like it to go a bit lower, actually similar to how you like to look at things. So if it goes down to 160 and then back up again, now the fail safe for that is that if it doesn't go back to 160, it just goes straight up. If this takes out this line here, then it would have completed enough of a base to reverse this whole trend. And that would be extremely interesting for a move. We could even start talking about a move back towards sort of 6.4, back to this resistance level up here. I mean, it'd be having a go at this 4.2 level along the way, which is major, but there isn't much between this breakout and that level up there. So this is why this price action technically is looking really interesting. So the first phase is complete. It's made a minor bottom. Will it turn into a major base? We'll have to see. We should know by perhaps the end of this month, time-wise, because we can look at this prior shoulder here for how long that took, and it should be about a comparable move. So if it's not around this area here of 230, 240 by the end of the month, beginning of sort of August, then it's less likely to be a reversal pattern. We'd have to revisit it, but this is looking interesting.
So general gist of what I'm getting is you're seeing these nice basing patterns and several showing like they want to reverse and run the other way.
Well, yeah, I mean, look, so far, the previous chart was a little more compressed, but some of the other ones are breaking out, and we got the first inkling of this last week in some of the charts that we saw. If you look at last week's show, there was more bullish indications in some of the altcoins, which is strange because you'd expect them all to be compressed and going lower. So, a lot of them were, to be fair, but there were some that were starting to make a base. So we're seeing a repeat of patterns, which is obviously why I use technical analysis, because this stuff repeats. So we're seeing these little sort of flat bases that turn into strong rallies. So we've seen the strong rally, and then then potentially this could turn into something bigger. So normally when you're reversing such a major trend, it can happen quickly, but it usually takes a little bit longer because the investors come in phases. So you get the short-term buyers who come in, they take their profits. Then the longer-term buyers think, okay, maybe it's base now, and they start to, buy in and average in their positions, and then it goes back up. Now, of course, there's no guarantee with anything. This could all, tip lower and break into new lows. Everything is possible. That's why I use technical analysis. It's not just because we say it's guaranteed. We're looking at probabilities at every phase along the way. It's just that there's more evidence building for a base than not, and so we can become more bullish this week than we were last week.
Yeah, it makes great sense. Let's take a look at this next one. I'm excited to talk about this. This is Freeway token.
Yeah.
Or FWT.
FWT. So that's been on the radar for a while, hasn't it? Now, wow. Okay. So Freeway token was one that we liked because it was holding in. Is that correct? That is correct.
Yeah.
Okay.
We'll talk about why it's done this at the end. There actually is the chart at the end there is kind of wrong.
Okay. So should I switch to another platform or?
Let's try another platform and see.
Yeah.
Essentially, this one, the bridge partner that held the tokens for the bridge between the Ethereum chain and Binance Smart Chain, their wallet was compromised, and hackers took those funds and they dumped them. So that's why we see the price dump. So they rolled back and airdropped everyone who had tokens from prior to the hack point. They airdropped everyone a new token.
Oh,
so
I see.
The actual new price or the price on the current token is actually right close to where we were at before.
Oh, I see.
So actually you see, yep, it corrected upwards. It was down a little bit, but it's pretty much on the lower trend line of where we were before, and it's handled remarkably well. Now, I didn't have time to do a video on this when the hack happened. So if you follow us on Telegram, I did reach out to the team immediately when I heard about this, got an answer, was able to post it on both Telegram and Discord right away, because here's the challenge when a token gets hacked like that. They have some kind of compromise, and this wasn't the team got compromised, but the bridge partner holding the tokens. It's one of the reasons I'm a big fan of Wand Chain, because they have a trustless bridge setup between the different chains that they are, because the bridge partner in this case is the one that got compromised and their wallet got compromised. Those tokens were then dumped on the market. So their solution usually is they roll it back. But if you buy during that compromised period, when all of a sudden the prices go really low, you're usually stuck. The team did offer to reimburse what USD costs, like the amount of USD that you put in, before they made an announcement about what fix there was going to be. So if that did happen to you, there is a way to get your money back. The team is going to go ahead and, take care of people who had losses that way. So join their Telegram is the easiest way, their Telegram or Discord. And the best way to find that is just go to Freeway token on CoinGecko. I'll show that in just a sec. So basically go to CoinGecko, go to Freeway token. And over here on the right, you usually get their information. So their Twitter, their Telegram. So you can join their Telegram just by clicking on it here, or you can go to their Twitter and get the information. Follow that. So they're right back up to where they were prior to the hack, along this lower trend line. And that's cool, especially having gone through a big hack. That shows a lot of strength. Usually prices dip down a lot more, but the team handled it pretty quick and a good solution. And they had a different type of wallet compromise about 9 months ago. So when this happened, they already knew how to handle the solution. Everything went right to it. And yeah, so handled it great. Good job by the team. They, when I reached out to them, they knew exactly what was going on. They got back to me right away. I was able to get back to the community members on Telegram and Discord immediately, let them know what was going on. some of our Telegram and Discord members decided to make some profits. They flipped it. So when it went way, way down because the hack was still happening, they bought some at lows. And then when it doubled, they turned around and flipped it. I told them that's super risky. They can totally do it if they wanted to. A couple of them didn't get out in time, so they may have not made a profit on there, but a few of them made a really good profit during that window.
Right. I mean, I think with regard to the technicals, given that there is so much going on in the actual underlying that's so unusual, it may be best to wait for things to settle down a little bit, because prior to it, it was just in a range, and it was trading very nicely within that range. I share your sentiment that if they handle a problem like this really well, that can be extremely bullish. And actually, you mentioned it at the top of the show, that the situation with Celsius from a broad sort of cryptocurrency perspective, crypto asset perspective, is such a negative, and yet what we're seeing is the market going up, the broader market going up. So that's another plus to that adds to the strength of the rally, because if the market is ignoring bearish moves or bearish news, then that's a positive. It's actually the definition of a bull market. In a bull market, the market ignores bearish news and reacts to positive news more aggressively, and vice versa in a bear market. So I think that's another encouraging sign. So yeah, I would like to see this in a couple of weeks when things have settled down. But prior to it, it was in a range, but it was in an elevated range compared to the rest of the market. It was outperforming. So I would say, wait, but it was one of the stronger markets prior to this happening, and I'd hope that it would emerge strong as well.
Yeah, this is one I like even at the current price. My take profit zone is about double this price. So I do like it at this price a lot. It did get a little bit cheaper even like a couple days ago after the hack. It's come right back up to that bottom trend line. I don't mind buying at the bottom trend line. It could break back below this. I just don't see the pressure. Number one, their main business app continued to work smoothly and flawlessly during this hack. It didn't affect that at all. What it did affect is if you were looking to sell your tokens during that time, the price going lower. And so, yeah, I'm still very bullish on this project. There is risk in this project. This type of project could always fail. And so we've seen some similar type projects, similar in different ways, like Celsius and Voyager fail. But they are a different model, and they pay in rewards differently than Freeway token does. So I've communicated a lot to the team over the past 3 weeks, and they still, in fact, we had an interview with their CEO just like a week and a half ago, still seems strong and well positioned. I do plan to take profits as it does go up, and I expect it will. I hope it will. As an investor, I have a lot of funds in Freeway tokens token, and but I'll take profits just as a risk mitigation on the way up. Let's take a look over at Censorium. This was a viewer suggestion for us to look at.
Okay. What's the code?
Censorium. Let me see, because this is not one that I know. I think he also gave us, let me look in the comments from before where he suggested them. Okay, Senso is the ticker symbol.
Senso, like this, yeah.
Oh, let me put your chart up. Yeah.
Yeah. Senso US dollar. Right. 19th. So what we have here is so we've got this collapse. So look at this. This is a classic collapse and a spike reversal. So what would normally come from this is the basing of a trend. So the fact that it's come all the way back down to this prior low was very dangerous in terms of the risk of that breaking lower was very, very high. But it just goes to show that even with a very high probability of something happening, it doesn't guarantee it, because the market turned around again. Now, this is still operating from a downward trend. So all these highs, all these major highs are still lower. So we've got a lower high there, a lower high there, a slightly higher high here, but it's still, trading below that. So this all then kind of fits in with what we would call a descending triangle. Now, a descending triangle, unfortunately, is a bearish pattern. So we need this bearish pattern to be negated before we can start talking about a reversal. So on its plus side, it had a really great opportunity to trend lower when the market was going down, when this was going down, when everything was going down, when everyone was really bearish. So you had almost like maximum bearish kind of potential around here, and it chose not to do it. So that's a bit of a head scratcher. I would say, why didn't it break lower then? And since then, it's really consolidated. But what we'd need to happen is for, first of all, this resistance line to break. So I can't touch it until it breaks at least this resistance line, because this demarcates the downward trend, or this triangular pattern, which hopefully you can see how I've drawn that. So if it tests that and then comes down again, and then breaks the low, that would be characteristic of this type of reversal pattern, or sorry, continuation pattern. Now, if it turns into a reversal pattern, it will break that line and then take out a key resistance point. So I would say that the chances of doing that are actually higher than I'd normally give for a market in this type of pattern, for the reason that I've said. It had a really great chance to go down and it didn't take it. Plus everything else seems to be going up. So I would be definitely on the sidelines for me personally. But where I would think about getting into it, as I say, if it breaks this line, that would be the first signal. If it can take out 24 cents, then this would turn from being a continuation descending triangle and a bearish pattern into a double bottom. So that would be one base, this would be another base, and then we could start talking about a move back to 50 cents. So at the moment, as I say, we can't really step into it because it doesn't justify it yet. The price action doesn't justify me buying it, but it's far more balanced. It would ordinarily just be no, bearish, don't touch it. And obviously where the downward trend continues is if it takes this lower support line out. So if it takes 13 cents out, I would be very, very careful, because that is massive support, and it really shouldn't do that. So that's where we are. We're kind of in a relatively neutral spot right here. But how it trades this week will be really important. If it can rally with the rest of the market, that'll be your first signal that it's going to be potentially a reversal pattern. Second signal is a break of this line. Third signal is a move through 25 cents. And then you've got your base. Now you might say, well, why didn't I just buy it here? Well, yeah, you could, but it's far more of a 50-50 coin flip here. It's better if it's going to be a great, market and trade back to $1.50 or maybe even $3, then it's got to get through these resistance points. And that's why we would wait for confirmation that the longer term players want to get in before just buying it at a low.
Yeah, it's about 95% off from its previous highs right now, which is a pretty good price. A little bit on the company itself. Let me share my screen. So here's CoinMarketCap, and here's their website. So essentially, and you can tell almost by the price that this was in the metaverse play, right? Because it pumped really strongly with the metaverse plays. So back here, volume was lower even during this time period. Look how the volume is just higher ever since this metaverse plays. That means they built some community, and there's probably some people still heavily involved with this, even with the price pullback. So it hit its metaverse here, and there's some names behind this. So superstar DJ David Guetta is joining Censorium Galaxy, a VR platform backed by Forbes listed billionaire and Jay-Z's title. So they've got some names behind their metaverse. It does a good job kind of laying out what the team's vision is and where things are at. So it's on a lot of exchanges. Yeah, I mean, it's a decent play. Charts are okay. For me, it would just be like a little bit of a nibble because I do like the lower price range. I do hope it's going to get a little bit cheaper, which sometimes it does. So
you'd have to probably sell something to buy this, wouldn't you? And it's a question of whether something else looks better. Would that be the thing?
Yeah, I do have some stables set on the
Mm.
side for buys, right? And so I've got about 30,000 in liquidity, about 40,000. So for me, this would be a nibble like $500 purchase, right? So it wouldn't be it's not giving me a signal of like, yeah, go massively in. And personally, if I bought here, I would be hoping actually it came down cheaper for a bigger pickup. All right, let's jump over to our next one, which is WMT, or World Mobile Token.
World Mobile Token. Okay, I hope that is a rival to the mobile phone networks, but I'm guessing it's not. So we'll find out what that is in a.
Yeah.
It is it? Oh, right.
Doing things, yeah. So it'll be interesting to see how this does.
Yeah. Well, look. Obviously, again, same picture that we've seen in many of the markets. Downward trend. We've had this consolidation. It's broken into a new low. So if we were looking at it a couple of weeks ago, I would have said, you cannot touch that because it's trending down. But now it's come back in to this zone. So it's a good recovery of a very, very important zone. We don't want to, that's like being underwater and suffocating. You need to be above this support level. So this 20 cents is really important. It's not far above it, so it's come a bit above it. And what I'm looking for and what I'm thinking when I look at this chart is, are long-term investors coming in? Has the chart materially changed from bearish to bullish? Can I justify buying it? And where would I put my stop if I was wrong? Well, I can quite easily justify a very tight stop below this 21 level. So, or even if I wanted to give it a bit of room, the all-time low. So I could buy and hold it, but it's still a very balanced market because broadly speaking, this downward trend is still quite powerful. Where does that end? That would end, we would have to draw this as the first downward trend line. And then the next downward trend line would be here. So it looks like it's just gone through that, which is good. So that first trend line is broken. So yeah, I mean, that's good. That's a good sign. But there's still a lot of resistance in this zone. So I would say if you were in a very speculative mood and you wanted to put a small position on, you could probably justify it with a tight stop. The reason why I'm being slightly reluctant is because I think there are better looking charts out there. Not to say that this won't go up, but I think they could be better looking charts. And that's why I'm a bit reluctant to pull the trigger on this one. Where it's definitely completed a base is if it takes this resistance line out, and or which it should have done, taking out this 34 cents resistance point. That's massive support, massive resistance. It's a very, very key level. So if it can get through there, then I think it's it will look very promising. And it may well trade slowly up to it, or maybe even quickly. I'm not sure, but it's not far away enough from this very critical zone for me to be confident in it. Now, what I would very much like to see, as I sort of said right at the beginning of this, I want to see a rival to the mobile phone companies, mainly because it seems pretty clear that we can talk on things like WhatsApp and all these other voice over internet protocols, but yet for some reason, if I, as a person from the UK and Brexit, go to Italy, I'm charged like £5 a day, equivalent of say $7, just for using my phone and my data. And they're blaming it on Brexit, but before that, you used to be able to go to America with your current package, and all your calls were included with your normal phone package. So why the phone companies are suddenly blaming Brexit for the reason that they can't offer a service they offered before is quite strange. But anyway, that's why I want to see some competition coming in. If it's coming in terms of DeFi, then that's absolutely brilliant. Cryptocurrency, then absolutely fantastic. I'm all for it.
Yeah, this one, I like this project. I guess I'm hoping for a little bit cheaper on this one. So this is them on CoinGecko. Let's look at some data on it. So market cap of 62 million, which is still fairly high. Only about, what's that, 13%, 13.5% of their total token is in circulation right now. I'm worried that they're still going through some token vesting. So it looks like the token became tradable at December, the end of December last year. It went up to highs. Probably this chart doesn't fully reflect the highs because I think it went up close to $1. And so right now it's about 80% off, which is okay. I like bigger discounts. This one, though, there's a lot of supporters. It is on Cardano. The Cardano community is really strong around World Mobile Token. And yeah, there's a lot of people that have a lot of hopes for this. I would love to see it create viable competition. They're really going out to areas where they don't have a lot of cell phone stuff and connecting up people in Africa, actually some other places where they don't have a lot of cell phone coverage. And there, I can't remember. I did watch an in-depth thing on it about 6 months ago, and I just can't remember all the details as clearly as I'd like to for me to try to explain it. But you can go to their website at worldmobiletoken.com and watch these videos that will explain it. This is a nice 19-minute video. Earn rewards as the network grows. So I guess for me, it's just a wait. I know it's not like super expensive right now. It's 80% off. I just want it cheaper. I'm hoping that they're still doing some token investing to their pre-sale investors and it drives their prices down because they only launched about 7.5 months ago, 8 months ago. And so probably a lot of the projects, vest to their pre-sale investors over a year period, sometimes 18 months. So I'm just looking for an attractive entry price if I were to buy more of this, because they have all kinds of options. And a lot of the stuff I'm looking at is 95% off, sometimes 98% off. So much as I like it long-term and I want to see this successful, it's just not a juicy enough discount for me. That concludes the picks that we have from all of you. Remember, if you want us to review one for next week, put up to 2 in the comments below, especially if you can give us what you like about it. That really helps us, as well as sometimes give us the full name and the ticker symbol. Makes it easier for us to find ones that I'm not already strongly familiar with. Though I do know a lot of the projects out there, there's like 20,000 of them. And so I don't know every project, not even every promising project. So thank you everyone for joining us. Remember, so the market's down. Things are really cheap right now. Just know that decisions made while the market is so cheap lead to life-changing results when the market turns around and goes crazy. So you're in the right place at the right time. A lot of people in the future, I think, will look back and say, I wish I could have been in crypto here. And they're talking about this point now when everything's so cheap. Thanks so much for joining us, Paul. Thank you for joining our audience. We really appreciate it, and we love your viewpoints.
It's always a pleasure. I wouldn't have heard about World Mobile Token without you guys. So thank you so much. And,
I know, right? The audience brings us really good stuff. And yeah, thank you for everyone for your picks. For our longtime listeners, you know what this wrap is all about. For those just catching this the first time, I had this wrap written to reinforce the principles that I teach people that have like a long-term vision. And so this wrap is for all you rainmakers out there.
chasing all of the gains, chasing the pumps and all of the hype trains. But like in life, you're bad before you're good. Was told to buy when it was pouring like a rainmaker should. I buy when it's down, don't chase the boats that I miss. Cause I always make the time in mind. I stick the one out cause I'm patient like that. And I'll wait for the right time. I sell when it's high, I buy when it's low. They call me rich, they call me smart. I'm just a rainmaker running the show. Calculated investments, I don't leave with my heart. Principles are simple, believe in a lot. Buy when it's boring, just gotta be smart. I sell when it's hype, like all the channels they pump it. That's when I was selling, got parabolic to dump it. They call me rich, they call me smart. I'm a rainmaker, making my own start. I'm with the future, learning the past. Makes the time fly by, years going so fast. The game plan is mine, I'll own it now. When I reach the top, haters asking me how. Cause I'm a rainmaker, investments I love. And I follow what I learn, not relying on luck. Time is never better, the time like the present. This next 5 years is a gift and it's feeling like heaven. I'm committed to learn, to study and to know that nothing comes easy but with knowledge the game show. Sticking out this road cause soon will come a bear market. Learning and growing and when it's slow will be the target. Naysayers come out, Bitcoin is dead. The massive decreases can get to your head. Sticking around, the time is better. I'm strong like that, I'll let the others be fretters. 2 years time the ball will bring back the gains. That makes it worth the effort cause here comes the rain. So let's go rainmakers, let's make it all happen. Let go of the hate, let the haters be crapping. I'm here for 5 years, let's do this together. The time is right, the time could be better. They call me rich, they call me smart. I'm a rainmaker, making my own start. I'm with the future, learning the past. Makes the time fly by, years going so fast. The game plan is mine, I'll own it now. When I reach the top, haters asking me how. Cause I'm a rainmaker, investments I love. And I follow what I learn, not relying on luck. Haters be hating, the time to slow down. Addressing what they say when I'm wearing my crown. They're chasing green candles like someone who was new. I got a vision that was bigger, helping me to push through. I'm still human and sometimes it is rough. And that's what makes me special, simply I stay tough. Cause I'm a rainmaker, investments I love. And I follow what I learn, not relying on luck.